Just watch me break it.
All right, let's dive into something you might not think twice about. Usually nylon tights. I bet you've got a pair in your drawer right now. But there's more to them than meets the eye. We're talking science, war, the whole nine yards.
Oh, for sure. A lot more than just fashion.
Yeah. Before nylon came along, what did women even wear? Silk stockings, maybe, but those were for the well-off.
Right, a total luxury item.
And super delicate, too. Thick
Yeah.
mending kits and all that. Then you had wool, cotton, not exactly the glamorous options.
Not at all.
For a lot of women, fashionable legwear just wasn't a reality. Then 1935 hits, and boom. Wallace Carruthers over at DuPont Labs invents nylon. Not just any fabric, though. This was like a miracle fiber.
Yeah, totally revolutionary.
Perfect for hosiery, strong, lightweight, sheer, the works.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. It wasn't just a science thing. Nylon really shook things up culturally. Fashion could finally be for everyone.
Oh.
Okay, picture this. 1940, nylon stockings hit the market, and it's utter chaos. Nylon riots, they called them. Millions of pairs sold out, like instantly. Women lined up for blocks, desperate for these things.
Wow. The must-have item of the decade, huh? Well, what made them so different, though? Why were women so crazy about nylon?
Think about it, stockings that wouldn't snag the second you looked at them, and you could actually afford them.
Right.
Compared to silk, nylon was indestructible. Way cheaper to produce, too. So more women could actually be fashionable, keep up with the trends. A massive change.
So fashion wasn't just for the elite anymore, like you said. Nylon really did democratize it. But then World War II happened, and that changed everything, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Everything got affected, including nylon. It became a wartime essential.
So
Parachutes, ropes, tents, all that vital stuff. They needed this miracle fiber.
women had to give up their stockings. What a sacrifice.
It was definitely a sign of the times. Women had to get resourceful. Some just went bare-legged. Others turned to that leg makeup, liquid stockings.
Liquid stockings. I've heard of those. Can't imagine trying to paint my legs to look like I'm wearing stockings, though. Some women even donated their nylons to be used for the war effort, right? Talk about patriotic.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
A simple pair of stockings becomes this symbol of fashion and then of sacrifice during wartime. Priorities change so fast and people adapt. It's remarkable.
And after the war ended, nylon stockings made a huge comeback, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They became a symbol of peacetime prosperity. Back to normalcy after all that hardship.
Like a return to the good times, a bit like the roaring 20s after World War I, that longing for luxury and fun after tough times.
Exactly. And speaking of finer things, the 1950s rolled around, and nylon stockings were all about Hollywood glamour. Marilyn Monroe, Audrey Hepburn, those iconic looks often included those sleek, shimmering nylons.
Wow, from wartime necessity to a symbol of glamour, that's quite a journey for nylon. What made them so alluring on the silver screen, though?
They just added that touch of sophistication, that allure, the ultra-feminine, glamorous look of the era, a subtle but key part of creating that image of the perfect, elegant woman.
And that image wasn't just limited to Hollywood, right? You mentioned those British Pathé newsreels. Those were like the YouTube of their time.
Exactly. They captured everyday life, and women were wearing nylons everywhere, shopping, working, just out and about. Shows how much of an impact nylon had on society.
From nylon riots to war shortages to Hollywood glamour, nylon stockings have seen it all, haven't they? They seem to be connected to these big cultural moments. But then the 1960s happened. Miniskirts took over, fashion took a turn, a whole new era. Did that affect nylon's story?
You bet it did.
Yeah.
As hemlines went up, there was a need for something new, more practical, comfortable hosiery. And that's where pantyhose came in.
Pantyhose. Right, the stockings and panties all in one. That's a pretty big change from the traditional stockings. Seems like it reflects how women's roles in society were changing too, doesn't it?
Spot on. Pantyhose, a practical solution for the modern woman, on the go and active.
Not just about fashion anymore, but clothes that actually fit women's lives. Pretty cool how nylon adapted like that. But, speaking of fashion, you found some early appearances of nylon stockings in films, right? What did you dig up?
Well, finding the very first time they popped up on screen is tricky. But there are some fun ones. Like in the 40s, there's The Youngest Profession. There's this whole scene with teenagers who want nylons from a movie star.
That's amazing. It shows you how badly people wanted them back then.
Yeah, for sure. Then there's CoverGirl with Rita Hayworth. Her look in that film, the costumes and the stockings, it really shows how important legwear was for the glamour of that time.
What about the 50s? Did you find anything good from that decade?
Oh, yeah. Sabrina, For one, Audrey Hepburn goes from tomboy to sophisticated, and I'm pretty sure those nylons helped.
Makes sense. Oh, and we can't forget Marilyn Monroe and some Like It Hot. Some pretty iconic scenes with her and her nylon-clad legs in that one.
Absolutely. It's crazy how such a simple thing could be so important to the image of a whole era.
It really is. But let's fast forward to today. Nylon tights are still everywhere, aren't they? What do you think keeps them so popular after all these years?
Well, for one, they're so versatile. Dress them up, dress them down. You can find any color and pattern you can think of. There's a reason they're a go-to for so many women, you know?
True. Add a touch of elegance to a simple outfit, or even be the main event themselves. But with all the other legwear options out there now, why do you think nylon tights have stuck around for so long?
Think about it. Comfort, style, and they go with anything. Nylon tights have it all. They can be sheer or opaque, smooth or textured, patterned or plain. Plus, they're still pretty affordable, especially compared to some of the other options.
You got a point. They're like the little black dress of legwear, timeless and adaptable. But gotta ask, any tips for keeping these delicate things looking good? I feel like I'm always fighting runs and snags.
The trick is to be gentle with them. Hand washing with a mild detergent and cold water, that's always the best way to do it.
Okay, so no washing machine then.
Definitely not. The machine, both washer and dryer, they can be really rough on those delicate fibers. If you want to keep them looking their best, air drying is the way to go.
Got it. But what if the damage is already done? You know, there's a run. Is there any saving them, or are they trash?
Don't give up on them yet. One little trick I've learned is to use a bit of hairspray on a small run.
Hairspray, really?
It sounds strange, I know, but it can actually stop the run from getting worse. It might not always work, but it's worth a shot.
Okay, I'm adding that to my style survival guide. Speaking of repurposing, though, are there any other uses for old tights besides just throwing them away? Trying to be less wasteful these days.
Definitely. Don't underestimate those old tights. They make amazing dusters for delicate things. And you can use them to polish your shoes, even your car. Believe it or not, they're great for cleaning Teflon pans without scratching them up.
You're kidding! I never would have thought of that. See, this is why I love these deep dives, always learning something useful. But before we get sidetracked by cleaning tips, let's wrap up our nylon journey with some final thoughts.
Just watch me break it. You're falling into me, touch me.
Wow, it's amazing to think about everything nylon tights have been through. From nylon riots to Hollywood glamour to cleaning tips. Who knew they had such a fascinating story?
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate something so ordinary in a whole new way, doesn't it?
It totally does. But before we wrap up this deep dive, is there anything else about nylon tights we haven't talked about yet?
Let me see. We covered their history, fashion impact, care tips, even some clever alternative uses. Oh, I know. Have you ever heard of making scented sachets with old tights?
Scented sachets? You mean those little pouches people put in their drawers to make their clothes smell nice?
Exactly. You just fill a section of old tights with some dried lavender, rose petals, any fragrant herbs you like, really. Tie it off, and boom. You get a DIY scented sachet. A great way to repurpose those old tights and freshen up your wardrobe.
Okay, that is officially the most creative use for old tights I've ever heard. I'm totally trying that. But for now, let's get back to our main takeaway. What's the big lesson you want our listeners to walk away with after this nylon adventure?
I think the biggest thing is the power of curiosity. Nylon tights are just one example of how something totally ordinary can have this amazing history. It makes you look at the world differently, ask questions, never take things for granted.
So true. Makes you wonder what other everyday things have hidden stories just waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. Maybe it's something you use all the time without even thinking. What if you did some digging, some research? You never know, you might find.
So the challenge for our listeners is to go out and explore, right? Look at their world with the same curiosity we brought to nylon tights today.
Absolutely. You never know what hidden stories you might find, what connections you might make, and hey, who knows, maybe you'll even find a topic for a future deep dive.
I love that. Can't wait to see what everyone discovers out there. Until then, stay curious and keep those stockings stylish.
Just watch me break it.